Since the dawn of time, men have sought to understand the purpose of their existence, to explore the meaning of life and the nature of divinity. I, Muhammad, was born amidst such quests, in the city of Mecca, a place of commercial and spiritual significance in the Arabian Peninsula. I was born into the respected Quraysh tribe, known for its influence and standing in our society. My birth was not marked by grand celebrations or ostentatious prophecies. I was just another child, in just another city, under a sky that had witnessed the birth and death of countless stars. Yet my life was destined to be a reflection of change, a light in the darkness of ignorance and confusion that prevailed at the time. My childhood was marked by loss and solitude. My father, Abdullah, departed from this world before I could know him, leaving a void in my life, and in my mother Amina's heart. She was the one who instilled in me the early values, taught me to look up at the sky with wonder, and to the earth with respect. But, as if fate was determined to test me from my early years, I also lost her at a young age. These early losses shaped in me a deep contemplation of life and death, and of the ephemeral nature of our existence. I grew up under the care of my grandfather Abdul Muttalib, and then my uncle Abu Talib. They taught me about the tradition and history of our people, about the duties and responsibilities that come with belonging to the Quraysh tribe. In the streets of Mecca, I mingled with merchants, pilgrims, and poets, each carrying stories and wisdom that interwove in the tapestry of everyday life. As I grew, I found myself drawn to matters of faith and morality. Mecca was a melting pot of beliefs and religious practices. Polytheism, idolatry, nascent monotheisms, all coexisting in a tense and often conflicting balance. I observed, listened, and in my heart, a sense of seeking grew, a need to understand what lay beyond the traditions and rituals. My youth was spent among the caravan trades, traveling through vast deserts and distant cities. These journeys opened my eyes to the world beyond Mecca. With each journey, my thirst for knowledge and understanding grew. I saw the diversity of humanity, their struggles, their joys, their countless ways of seeking God. I always returned to Mecca, my home, but with an ever-expanding perspective and an increasingly restless spirit. The city that witnessed my birth would also witness my transformation, my encounter with a truth that would change not just my life, the course of history. In those early days, my world was bounded by the walls of Mecca and the familiar faces of my tribe. Yet even in that early stage of life, I felt a deep connection to something greater than myself, a presence I couldn't name but felt in every sunrise and sunset. My childhood was filled with the typical learnings of a Quraysh child. I was taught to read and write, though these were not common skills for everyone in those times. My tutors were men of great wisdom and patience, who saw in me a potential that I yet did not understand. I learned about the history of our people, the wars and alliances, the gods and spirits our people worshipped. Yet in my heart, these stories and beliefs were like pieces of a puzzle that didn't quite fit. I spent my days among the markets and streets of Mecca, observing people, their lives, and their routines. The voices of vendors, the chants of poets, the debates of tribal leaders, all these formed the soundtrack of my youth. But in the solitude of the night, when the stars shone bright over the desert and the city's hustle subsided, my mind wandered paths of uncertainty and unanswered questions. In my adolescence, I began working in the caravan trades of my uncle Abu Talib. These journeys were more than mere trade expeditions for me. They were voyages of discovery. With each city and town we visited, my understanding of the world and the people inhabiting it expanded. I met Jews, Christians, Zoroastrians, each with their own vision of God and life. Their beliefs and religious practices, often so different from my own, inspired me to reflect on the nature of faith and our purpose of existence. As I grew, I earned a reputation for being honest and trustworthy. My compatriots called me Al-Amin, the trustworthy. This reputation afforded me opportunities and responsibilities, and I soon began handling business on my own. Through these engagements, I met Khadija, a woman of noble character and great intelligence. She not only became my employer, but also my confidant, and eventually my beloved wife. Khadija believed in me like no one else had, and her love and support were foundational in the years to come. During those years of youth, my restless spirit and seeking heart became my constant companions. Though I did not know it then, these would form the foundation upon which my future, a future that was destined to be anything but ordinary, would be built. As the years passed, my restlessness grew. Mecca, with all its hustle and pagan rituals, began to feel increasingly distant from the answers I sought. I felt a growing need for isolation, for reflection in solitude. It was in this pursuit that I began retreating to the cave of Hira, a sanctuary in the mountains near the city, seeking peace and perhaps some answers. These visits became my personal sanctuary, a place where I could meditate and pray in silence. During the month of Ramadan, in my 40th year, my life changed forever. On one of those nights, as I meditated in the cave, I was visited by an overwhelming presence. A being of light, Gabriel, the messenger of God, appeared before me with a command that would shake the very foundations of my being. Read. My response was one of confusion and fear, for I could not read. I cannot read, I said. But the command was repeated over and over, until words began to flow from me. Words that were not my own, but resonated with a truth and clarity I had never experienced before. They were divine words, a revelation that marked the beginning of my mission. I returned home trembling, overwhelmed by what I had experienced. I sought comfort in Khadija, who became my first believer. She did not doubt my words for a moment, and her faith in me reaffirmed my own faith in the vision I had received. My cousin Ali, my friend Abu Bakr, and others close to me also believed, becoming the first followers of a path that was still taking shape. The revelations continued, each bringing more clarity and depth to my understanding. I was revealed truths about God, creation, morality, justice, and the destiny of man. I began to share these teachings with others, inviting them to abandon idolatry and to recognize the existence of one true God, merciful and all-powerful. Not everyone received these teachings openly. Many in Mecca saw my message as a threat to their traditions and social order. Tensions grew, and with them, opposition to my message and my followers. We faced ridicule, ostracism, and even persecution. But my conviction was unshakable. I knew that what had been revealed to me was the truth, and I had to persevere, no matter the obstacles. As the revelations continued, I understood that my mission extended beyond merely sharing a new spiritual understanding. It was a call to transform not just individual beliefs, but an entire society. My message was clear. There was only one God, Allah, and I was His messenger sent to guide humanity towards truth and righteousness. With each passing day, my resolve strengthened, but so too did the challenges. Mecca, deeply rooted in its polytheistic practices and power structures, resisted the change I proposed. The leaders of Quraysh, seeing my message as a threat to their authority and the established order, began to openly oppose me and my followers. We faced persecution, sometimes violent, testing our faith and determination. However, each adversity only served to reinforce my commitment to the mission I had been entrusted with. My followers, though few in number, were unshakable in their faith and loyal in their support. Among them were people from all walks of life, rich and poor, men and women, young and old. Together, we formed a community united not by blood or self-interest, but by shared faith in a single, merciful God. Our gatherings were often secret, held in hidden places to avoid persecution. In these meetings, I shared the revelations that continued to come to me, instructions and guidance on how to live a righteous and just life in the eyes of Allah. Our message was not just one of spiritual worship, but also of social justice, equality, and compassion for the less fortunate. Despite the growing hostility and challenges, our community grew. The teachings spread beyond the walls of our clandestine meetings, touching the hearts and minds of those who longed for change, those who saw in our message a hope for a more just and merciful world. But it was evident that Mecca would not be the place where our movement could flourish. Hostility towards us reached new extremes, and the safety of my followers became an increasing concern. It was then that the possibility of a new beginning emerged, a place where we could freely practice our faith and build the community we envisioned. That place was Yathrib, a city several days' journey away, later known as Medina. The decision to leave Mecca was not an easy one. It was the city of my birth, where I had received the first revelations and begun my mission. However, it became clear that our presence there had become unsustainable. Threats against us grew day by day, and it was my duty to protect my community. Thus, when the leaders of Yathrib invited us to settle in their city, I accepted, knowing this was the next step in the divine plan. The Hijra, our journey to Medina, was both an act of faith and an act of resistance. On the night we departed, the leaders of Quraysh had planned to assassinate me. With the help of Ali, who took my place in bed to deceive the assassins, and my loyal companion Abu Bakr, we escaped the city under the cover of darkness. The journey to Medina was arduous and fraught with danger. We traveled by less traveled paths to avoid pursuit, facing the scorching heat of the day and the chill of the night. During the journey, I reflected on the path I had traveled so far, on the hardships and the blessings. Despite the dangers, I felt a deep peace, a conviction that each step we took was guided by the hand of Allah. Upon arriving in Medina, we were greeted with warmth and hospitality that filled my heart with gratitude and hope. The people of Yathrib, who would soon adopt the name of Medina, opened their doors and their hearts to us. In this city, we would build the first true Muslim community, a model society based on the principles of Islam. The early days in Medina were filled with activity. We established the Quba Mosque, the first place of worship for our community. The construction of this mosque was a symbolic moment, marking not just a physical space for our faith, but also the beginning of a new chapter in our history. In Medina, my role expanded beyond that of a messenger of God. I became a leader of a community, a mediator in disputes, and an architect of a new society. The revelations I received now addressed not just spiritual matters, but also how to organize and govern our community with justice and equity. Medina became a refuge for all those seeking a life based on Islamic principles. Muslims from Mecca and other regions began to arrive, seeking a place where they could freely practice their faith. Together, we were building something that had never existed before, a society governed by divine precepts, a beacon of hope and guidance for all. In Medina began a period of building and growth, both for myself and the Muslim community. Here, the divine revelation continued, guiding me in the formation of a society based on principles of equality, justice, and service to God. Each day brought new challenges and opportunities, but also the immense satisfaction of seeing our teachings transform lives. One of the first and most significant acts in Medina was the establishment of a pact between the Muslims and the other communities in the city, including Jews and Christians. This pact, known as the Constitution of Medina, was a milestone in history, setting principles of mutual cooperation, religious respect, and communal rights. It was a testament to our vision of a society where people of different beliefs could coexist in peace and harmony. During this time, the Muslim community grew not only in numbers, but also in faith and understanding. The revelations I received addressed all aspects of life, from worship and morality to social relations and civil laws. These teachings were compiled and memorized, forming the basis of what would eventually become the Qur'an, the definitive guide for Muslims around the world. However, the spread of Islam was not without opposition. The leaders of Mecca, seeing the growth of our community as a threat, began to prepare attacks against Medina. These confrontations, including significant battles like Badr and Uhud, tested our resilience and faith. Despite the challenges, we remained steadfast in our conviction, defending our community and the principles we believed in. Throughout the years in Medina, My role as a leader and guide deepened. My days were filled with teachings, decisions on managing the community, and the continued reception of divine revelations. Through these experiences, the Muslim community was forged as an exemplar of Islamic values in action: fraternity, justice, patience, and a profound devotion to Allah. Over time, even those who had initially opposed us began to see the truth and beauty in our teachings. The community in Medina flourished, becoming a center of learning, faith, and culture. The example of Medina inspired many, both within and beyond the Arabian Peninsula, to embrace Islam, marking the beginning of its expansion as one of the world's great religions. As time passed, the tensions between Mecca and Medina began to dissipate. Through a series of revelations and negotiations, we eventually reached a peace agreement with the leaders of Mecca. This treaty, known as the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, was a pivotal moment, marking a shift towards reconciliation and mutual understanding. After years of conflict, the treaty paved the way for my return to Mecca, the city of my birth. It was a return not as a conqueror, but as a messenger of peace. In 630, we entered Mecca peacefully, and one of my first acts was to purify the Kaaba of idols, restoring its original purpose as a sanctuary dedicated to the worship of the one true God. The return to Mecca marked the beginning of a new era for Islam. Those who had once rejected and persecuted me now listened with respect, and many embraced Islam. The transformation of Mecca from a center of idolatry to a center of monotheism was one of the most significant moments in my mission. My final years were spent continuing my work of teaching and guidance. The revelations I received during this period focused on consolidating the principles and practices of Islam, ensuring that the community that had grown both in Medina and Mecca could sustain and expand after my departure. In 632, I performed my last pilgrimage to Mecca, known as the Farewell Pilgrimage. During this pilgrimage, I delivered a sermon that summarized the core principles of my message: the equality of all human beings, the importance of justice, the rights and responsibilities of individuals and communities, and the need to maintain a close and sincere relationship with God. Shortly after returning from the farewell pilgrimage, I felt that my time in this world was drawing to a close. My health began to deteriorate, and I prepared to meet my Creator. Surrounded by my family and closest companions, I surrendered my spirit to Allah in the city of Medina. My departure from this world was not the end of my story. Rather, it was the beginning of a legacy that would continue through generations. Islam, the community I founded, and the teachings I transmitted would spread beyond the sands of the desert, reaching every corner of the world. My name is Muhammad, and this has been the story of my life. A life that, from its humble beginnings in Mecca, transformed into a journey of faith, challenges, and profound change. As the final prophet in the long chain of messengers of God, my mission was to bring a message of hope, unity, and spiritual renewal. Reflecting on my life, I see a path marked by divine grace and the support of those who believed in me from the beginning. From my beloved wife Khadija to my faithful companions who stood by my side through trials and tribulations, each played a crucial role in the spread of Islam. My story is one of resilience in the face of adversity, of remaining true to convictions even in the darkest moments. I faced rejection, ridicule, and persecution, but never strayed from the path that Allah had laid out for me. Through divine revelation, I was able to guide a community from ignorance to the light of knowledge and faith. Islam, the religion I founded, is based on the pillars of faith, prayer, charity, fasting, and pilgrimage. These pillars are not merely acts of worship but foundations for a life that honors God and respects the dignity of all human beings. Through the teachings of the Qur'an and my example, I aspire to show a path to a more just and merciful society. My final message, delivered during the farewell pilgrimage, resonates through time as an echo of my legacy: the equality of all before God, the importance of justice and mercy, and the call to live a life of service and devotion. These are the principles I hope will guide the Muslim community and all who find wisdom in my words. As my story is told and retold across generations, my hope is that it serves as a reminder that no matter the challenges we face, faith and perseverance can lead us to achieve the impossible. Islam, the community we established, and the teachings we left behind are a testament to what can be achieved when the heart and soul are dedicated to a divine purpose. My name is Muhammad, and though my journey in this world has ended, my story continues in the lives of millions who have found in Islam a path of peace, purpose, and eternal hope.